Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. I am ᴊᴏɪᴜ. Since the coronavirus emerged as a global threat, researchers across the world have been working to find a vaccine to halt the pandemic. Currently, no approved vaccine exists to prevent the infection from COVID-19. Scientists are fast-tracking results and sidestepping normal scientific steps such as animal testing to find drugs that will treat and kill the virus that causes COVID-19. WHO has acknowledged that scientists are getting closer at an impressive pace to developing a vaccine, with the first human clinical trials already underway in Seattle, Washington. However, India is not participating in the World Health Organization's clinical trials for coronavirus because as of now, the country has a very small sample size. Clinical trial is any research study that prospectively assigns human participants or groups of humans to one or more health-related interventions to evaluate the effects of health outcomes. Today in In-Depth, we are discussing what are clinical trials, countries involved in the process and challenges involved in the procedure. The World Health Organization has acknowledged that scientists are getting closer at an impressive pace to developing a vaccine, with the first human clinical trials already underway in Seattle, Washington. A clinical trial is any research study that prospectively assigns human participants or group of humans to one or more health-related interventions to evaluate the effects of health outcomes. More details in this report. Ever since the coronavirus emerged as a global threat, researchers across the world began work on either developing a new drug or repurpose an existing medication to halt its spread. Currently, no approved vaccine exists to prevent COVID-19 infection. However, scientists are fast-tracking results and sidestepping normal scientific steps such as animal testing to find drugs that will treat and kill the virus that causes COVID-19. With that, they have now moved to clinical trials on humans.
All the developed countries, they are working on it. Even India is working on it. All the countries, they are working on it. Currently we know what is the genome of this COVID-19, and based on that, there are some vaccines, candidate vaccines, which are under, I'll not say trial, but under different phases of development. The first thing is you have to develop a vaccine, and after that, you have to see whether it is safe, it is efficacious or not. And depending on that, we conduct different trials, because if you have some product, it's a biological product which is being used, biological or chemical product which is being used for the, for the healthy individuals, for the sick individuals. So it should be beneficial for the disease for which is intended, number one. Number two, it should not cause any other harm, known as side effect. So that's what we study in the clinical trial, and from the trials we know how much effective it is and what are the different side effects, and whether it is safe to give it to public and different groups.
In USA, a phase 1 clinical trial evaluating an investigational vaccine has begun at Kaiser Permanente Washington Health Research Institute in Seattle. The National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, part of the National Institutes of Health, is funding the trial. The open-label trial will enroll 45 healthy adult volunteers aged between 18 to 55 years over approximately 6 weeks. The first participant has already received the investigational vaccine. The study is evaluating different doses of the experimental vaccine for safety and its ability to induce an immune response in participants. The vaccine is called mRNA-1273.
So in coronavirus, a large number of trials are happening. Just to name a few which are prominent, in US, there's a new drug called remdesivir, where the recruitment for the trials have started. which the drug is not yet available in the market, it's a new molecule. Then there are several trials which are happening on the antiretroviral drugs, which is the lopinavir and ritonavir in China and in other countries. There are also trials happening in relation to use of chloroquine. So chloroquine and lopinavir, ritonavir are drugs which are already in the market, but they are not used for coronavirus treatment, but for other treatments. So now we are trying out, because they have been shown that these drugs in the labs, they have shown that they affect the replication of the virus, they affect whether the virus lives or not lives. So the lab results are something that is promising, and so they are trying out in human beings. Then there are several other use of the flu drugs, oseltamivir, and other flu drugs, favipiravir, which are also under trial. Plus, of course, there are other, in China, there are a lot of other trials on the traditional medicines that the Chinese use. And yeah, so these are the more prominent ones, and of course, there are other trials.
Meanwhile, on March 17th, China authorized the start of human clinical trials of a vaccine developed by a biowarfare expert and her team. The trial will involve injecting the experimental vaccine into 108 healthy adults aged 18 to 60 in 3 different doses. The vaccine, which is the country's first to begin human trials, was co-developed by the Academy of Military Medical Sciences in Wuhan and Hong Kong's CanSino Biologics. China has initiated a series of major emergency research programs on virus genomics, antivirals, traditional Chinese medicines, clinical trials, vaccines, diagnostics, and animal models. A German biotech company recently announced 2 collaborations to advance the development of its vaccine, aiming to start testing on humans by the end of April. Meanwhile, researchers at Australia's Peter Doherty Institute for Infection and Immunity said they had taken an important step in understanding the virus by mapping the immune responses from one of the country's first coronavirus patients. French pharmaceutical company Sanofi has announced that it is ready to offer millions of doses of an anti-malarial drug to the French authorities after promising initial trials. Sanofi also said that it could potentially treat 3 lakh COVID-19 patients with the anti-malarial drug. However, the COVID-19 pandemic may impact the conduct of clinical trials of medical products, including drugs, devices, and biological products. Challenges may arise, for example, from quarantines, site closures, travel limitations, interruptions to the supply chain for the investigational product. With inputs from Vipul Agarwal, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. For the purposes of registration, a clinical trial is any research study that prospectively assigns human participants or group of humans to one or more health-related interventions to evaluate the effects on health outcomes. For this reason, clinical trials are sometimes also referred to as interventional trials. Interventions include drugs, cells, and other biological products, surgical procedures, radiology procedures, devices, behavioral treatments, changes in process of care, and preventive care, among other things. There are 4 phases to any clinical trial. Under phase 1, clinical trials test a new biomedical intervention in a small group of people, maybe between 20 and 80, for the first time to evaluate safety. Under phase 2, clinical trial study the biomedical or behavioral intervention in a larger group of people to determine efficacy and to further evaluate its safety. Under phase 3, studies investigate the efficacy of the biomedical or behavioral intervention in large groups of human subjects ranging from several hundred to several thousand by comparing the intervention to other standard or experimental interventions, as well as to monitor adverse effects and to collect information that will allow the intervention to be used safely. Under phase 5, studies are conducted after the intervention has been marketed. These studies are designed to monitor effectiveness of the approved intervention in the general population and to collect information about any adverse effects associated with widespread use.
Clinical trial is basically when you have a new drug or existing drug, you are going to use it for some other purpose, then you conduct certain trials. They are known as clinical trials. For vaccine, we use the term vaccine trial, and it has different phases where we test first in the animals, then in the healthy volunteers, then in some patients, then the group of patients, and then in the public. So there are different phases for it.
Clinical trial is a study, epidemiological study, where we have two groups of patients. One group of patient we give if we are doing a clinical trial of a drug, then we give a drug. The other group of patients, we don't give a drug. This division of the two groups is done by a procedure which is called randomization, so that it makes sure that the characteristics of these two groups of patients remains the same, so that we ensure that the only thing that is different between these two groups is only the drug. One group the drug is given, the other group the drug is not given, and all other characteristics are same. So that finally when we get the results, and if we say that the drug has worked in one group and the other group where we have not given the drug, whether the improvement or cure is actually because of the drug, we can only say when we do this kind of a study.
Conducting clinical trials often presents significant ethical, organizational, cultural and infrastructural challenges to researchers, pharmaceutical companies, sponsors and regulatory bodies. It requires cooperation among a diverse group of stakeholders, which include research sponsors, industry academia, government, non-profit organizations and patient advocates, clinical investigators, patients, payers, physicians and regulators. Time, money, personnel, materials such as medical supplies, support systems that include informatics and manpower, along with a clear plan for completing the necessary steps in a trial, are an essential part of the clinical research infrastructure. The most pressing challenge is enrollment of patients for clinical trials due to the high risks involved. In particular, with the risks and added challenges due to COVID-19, researchers say the promising clinical trials for coronavirus seems to be facing troubles with enrolling patients. As per the enrollment criteria, mild or moderate trial requires the patient to have fewer than 8 days since the disease onset, and the severe trial requiring fewer than 12 days. The second obstacle in a number of clinical trials for COVID-19 is related to the study's exclusion criteria, since these require that no patient can be on any antivirus medication before the enrollment of the study. A recent study in the US, where the first phase of the clinical trial for COVID-19 vaccine has begun, showed that among 170 clinical trial sites in the country, 30% said that SARS-CoV-2 pandemic would have a huge impact on their ability to recruit patients for new trials and to keep those already enrolled compliant, while 39% said they believe patients will be less likely to enroll in new trials, while 25% said currently enrolled patients would be less willing to continue participation. The survey was conducted last week. Experts advise that safety of the subject is of primary importance and risks of involvement in the trial, in particular with added challenges due to COVID-19, should be weighed up against anticipated benefit for the subject and society.
The challenges are several-fold. First of all, usually good clinical trials require a large number of patients, and we need to divide the patients into two groups. So one is we need a large number of patients. Secondly, of course, we need consent, which is in an informed consent, where we have to tell the patients what the new drug is all about or the vaccine is about, and whether they would be ready to take part in that. And finally, to maintain this what we call as blinding, that we make sure that the people who are analyzing the results are not aware that who has got the drug, which group and which group have not got the drug, so that the results become as unbiased.
The spread of the novel coronavirus has forced the governments of majorly affected states to close public places, especially schools, malls, shopping complexes and local bazaars, among other measures. This has led to thousands to stay at home and practice home quarantine methods released by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare based on the guidelines of the World Health Organization.
The duration of home quarantine period is 14 days. During this period, a home quarantined person should stay in a well-ventilated single room, preferably with a separate toilet. The person must maintain a distance of at least 1 meter from other family members. The person needs to stay away from elderly people, pregnant women and children. They should also have restricted movement within the house and not attend any social or religious gathering under any circumstances. A home quarantined person should wash hands often thoroughly with soap and water or with alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Avoid sharing household items, example dishes, drinking glasses, cups, eating utensils, towels, beddings or other items. Wear a surgical disposable mask at all times. However, if symptoms like cough, fever, difficulty in breathing appear, the person should immediately inform the nearest health center or call 011-2397-8046. Family members of the home quarantined person should avoid shaking the soiled linen or direct contact with skin. Use disposable gloves when cleaning the surfaces or handling soiled linen. Wash hands after removing the gloves. Must not allow visitors to meet the person in quarantine. In case the person being quarantined becomes symptomatic, all his close contacts will be home quarantined for 14 days or till the report of such case turns out negative. The environment around the home of the quarantined person must also be regularly sanitized. This means cleaning and disinfecting frequently touched surfaces in the quarantined person's room, cleaning and disinfecting toilet surfaces daily, cleaning clothes and other linen used by the person separately.
Talking about treatment, as we know, there is no available treatment for coronavirus. It is only supportive, but while the people they are staying at the home, and we all are recommending that if you are having any symptom, you please self-isolate yourself at the home so you do not spread the disease. And when you are at the home, maintain certain precautions. If somebody is sick, he or she should be in a room which is well ventilated and should maintain the proper hygiene, like washing of the hand. And it's not necessary that you wash only with the sanitizer or soap and water is equally effective. The right thing is how to wash your hand. There are many videos which are available that how to clean your hand with soap and water. So they should be properly cleaned, and maintain good nutrition, good hydration. That is very important because it affects your immunity, and if your immunity is good, your body will take care of the disease.
By following simple do's and don'ts, one can save oneself and others from getting infected. Practice frequent washing of hands. Wash hands with soap and water. Use alcohol-based hand sanitizers. Wash hands even if they are visibly clean. Cover your nose and mouth with tissue while sneezing and coughing. Throw used tissues into closed bins immediately after use. See a doctor if you feel unwell, that is, if you have fever, difficulty breathing and dry cough. While visiting the doctor, wear a mask to cover your nose and mouth. If you have these symptoms, please call the 24/7 helpline at 011-2397-8046. Avoid participating in large gatherings. Do not have a close contact with anyone if you are experiencing cough and fever. Do not touch your eyes, nose and mouth, and do not spit in public.
Since this virus is spreading through contacts, it's spreading through sneezing, coughing, so the most important thing is in this that keep yourself little away from people. Away means social distancing, what I am talking about. The other thing is rather than handshaking, do namaste, and avoid the crowded places. And other things which are very important, if you are coughing or sneezing, learn the coughing etiquettes. That's cover your mouth and nose while you are sneezing or coughing, or wear a mask if you have cough or sneeze. Next important thing is wash your hands properly. When you are coming from outside, wash your hands and keep the surfaces clean.
The most important point one has to remember is to not panic. Just by following basic hygiene along with other precautions, it is very less likely for anyone to catch the disease. It is also important to keep up to date with reliable information. Propagating wrong information can further fuel panic among the people and have an adverse effect on the efforts to contain the pandemic. With inputs from Vipul Agarwal, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And that's all we have for you in this edition of In Depth, but we will be back tomorrow with a focus on another key subject. Till then, I will take your leave. Thank you for watching.